Welcome back to Prophecy Unfolding. Prophecy in 2025 is moving rapidly. You know, all you have to do is look at the news to see what's happening around the world, when all the wars and rumours of wars, and it's just happening so quick. But today what I wanted to do was to bring you someone who gave this prophecy back in the 90s, and it's a rarity that I come across someone that when they give a prophecy it's dead accurate. This one is absolutely spot on to what's happening today. But you'll note what he says will be the next thing that will happen, and it's already starting. We can see it happening in Turkey. Watch this in full to get the full context, because you'll need the full context of this. But it's very, very important to hear what he says. It's an Orthodox Christian from the 90s, and it's been kind of resurfaced, and it's gone very, very viral at the moment. But have a listen to what he says. We'll smash the like button to get this out to as many as possible so they can see for themselves that prophecy is truly unfolding. Let's get into this.
But know this, that Jesus is coming soon, and he will right all wrongs. Beloved, stand firm in your faith, as you witness prophecy unfolding.
There's a prophecy recently commemorated and by Metropolitan Neophytos, which says that one day, this was uttered years ago, 20 years ago, by an ascetic in Crete, Theodore, an ascetic in Crete. He says, one day you'll be sipping coffee, you will hear the news that the Israelis have hit the nuclear program of Persia. That will be when the major worldwide events will start. At the same time, another sign, either shortly before or after, Erdogan, the head of Turkey, will fall, and this will be the sign of the great events that were mentioned in these prophecies.
Now, when I first seen this, I thought, wow, you know, it's very, very descriptive and very, very accurate on the things he says. But here's the exact video of the guy from the 90s himself giving this prophecy. But notice what he says will happen when it comes to Turkey.
Prophecies.
Και στο τέλος των παγκόσμιων πόλεμων, όπως ξεκίνησε, όπως είπαμε, από τη Συρία, Ουκρανία, Ισραήλ, αλλά μετά την Περσία, όταν χτυπήσουν το πυρηνικό πρόγραμμα της Περσίας οι Εβραίοι, τόσο η Κίνα όσο και η Ρωσία θα υποχρεωθούν να αντιδράσουν. Οι προφητείες λένε των Αγίων, και πρόσεξε, όχι μόνο των Ελλήνων Αγίων, και των Ρώσων και των Ρουμάνων και των Σέρβων, ότι θα ρίξουν πυρηνικά. Και το εκπληκτικό, ξέρετε τι είναι? Ο Πούτιν και η Κίνα δεν το θέλουν αυτό. Το θέλει πάρα πολύ η νέα τάξη πραγμάτων. Τους εξωθούν. Αυτή είναι η λέξη η ελληνική. Τους πιέζουν.
Do you talk a bit about the significance of Turkey, and what do you think in light of the prophecies? How will Turkey's involvement happen here?
Well, the key sign of the disintegration of Turkey will be the end of Erdogan, according to the prophecies, and the new leadership will be inclined toward the West, and they will do the bidding of the West. And one of the key thing that will happen was they will close the straits and not allow the Russian military to pass to go to the Middle East, where a lot of their interests will be at stake. And that will happen during a short war between Turkey and Greece, because that's a prerequisite for the straits to be shut. There must be a war, fair state going on. Otherwise, they're not justified by international law. So the prophecies are that Turkey will strike Greece over the disputed 6 miles between the two countries. And they have long had this dispute, well-known dispute going back decades and decades. And they will get the nod for this because ultimately it will be in the best interest of NATO to shut the straits and keep Russia out from the Middle East. And so this is all very much, whereas 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it would be hard to see these things as possibly materializing, even though the prophecies go back many, many decades. St. Pius was proposed 30 years ago. And he was saying these things. Now you can see them literally in front of us. Erdogan's party has largely lost power in the last elections. He has said he's going to step down, and now we're on the verge of possibly the attack on Iran's nuclear facilities, which is also said as a sign to provoke the larger war. So Turkey's, according to the prophecies, at the center of all the development going forward.
Now, when we look at the Middle East, and people ask the question, why is it so important for us, to be looking, why is what's happened the last week or so between Iran and Israel important? Is this something that we see in Scripture? And it's so important for us to know these things. Now, I'm not saying, that certain things are happening, but it just seems like the pathway has been made straight for all of these prophecies to be unfolding and kind of happening before our eyes. But the main reason, when we look at what's happening with Israel and Iran, here's why it's so important for us to use scriptural context.
Iran in the Bible? Iran is not named explicitly in the Bible, but it's historically known as Persia. Persia is mentioned in Ezekiel 38 in a prophecy about a coalition of nations that will come against Israel in the last days. Ezekiel 38:5 says, "Persia, Cush, and Put will be with them, all with shields and helmets." Many interpret this to mean Iran, Persia, aligning with other modern nations in a future attack on Israel, led by Gog and Magog, possibly representing a figure or nation from the far north, often associated with Russia by some interpreters. Tensions as signs of the times. Ongoing or escalating tensions between Iran and Israel, such as threats, proxy wars, or direct military strikes, are viewed by some as signs of approaching apocalyptic events predicted in books like Daniel, Ezekiel, Zechariah. Revelation. These people often see modern events as part of a prophetic timeline leading to a large-scale war involving Israel, for example, Ezekiel 38 and 39 war. A peace agreement or treaty, often tied to Daniel 9:27. The appearance of the Antichrist, the tribulation period, the second coming of Christ.
Now, when I look at these things and seeing that are happening, it brings a sense of, for me, excitement, and it gives me such hope in the validity of Scripture and the prophecies that are contained within the Bible, and we can see that they're happening before our eyes. But it also brings a sense of, not frustration, but it's almost like frustration, because we want as many people to come to Christ as possible, to see Jesus for who he is, the true Messiah. And I believe as time dwindles on and as we get closer, I believe there's many people that will have visions and dreams, and we're seeing it happening to a lot of people in the Middle East, Muslims specifically, who are having visions of Christ and turning to Christ, or dreams of Christ, and I pray that this happens more. But as we see prophecy unfolding, we know that things are coming to an end. Time is running out, time is short. Christ will come back. All we have to do when we look to what Jesus said about his return, it's like the Jewish wedding, where I believe we're right at the stroke of midnight, waiting, making sure that our lamps are full with oil, for when the call is made, we're ready to go, and we're not the 5 foolish virgins. The thing is, there's still time now to find Christ. He's not far away. If you've never known him, know that he is very, very personal, and he can be found. As we see these things pushing forward, remember, even though we see the chaos happening in the world and the disasters happening all over the place, know that there's a purpose to all that. This is all part of prophecy. Not only do we see the wars and rumours of wars, we're seeing volcanic eruptions happening all over the place. Big, huge one just happened recently as well over in Asia. It's just all becoming a melting pot, and things are moving forward. But like always, even though we see chaos happening in the world, remember the one true statement is that God is always in control, and keep the faith.